There's something that happened pre-COVID that's important to kind of just give some thought and understanding about. And that is, even pre-COVID, and this is somewhere around 2016, maybe 2017, that the rate of change in the world for the first time ever exceeded a human's ability to adapt to that rate of change. So if you think about this, since the creation of person, and however you think about that, if that's 6,000, 60 million, whatever time frame that is, but since the start, there's never been a time in the world where things changed so fast that humans could not adapt to it. Now, that started around 2017, and that's where, we were asking the question pre-COVID to companies and people, like, do you feel like something's off in the world? Do you feel like there's just a kind of a borderline of anxiety that you can't quite put your finger on? And people would say yes, but I don't know what it is, right? And because they couldn't understand what that is, and then COVID happens and it massively accelerates it. And we're on this path now that things are changing so fast that before this happened, when there's an event in the world, call it a world war, 9/11, a natural disaster, whatever it is, and you're kind of affected by that in a deep way, then it's like you become kind of stressed and anxious, and there's unknowns. But then, as the event settles down, you kind of go back to this baseline place of like kind of figuring out what's life about. Again, like, who am I? And you're kind of settling back into, hey, I can make sense of the world, right? I feel good. Well, now we're in this place where we have these elevated events, right? We've got COVID, we've got Russia invading Ukraine, we've got now, like, hey, are we in a looming recession? It's like these things are happening that are creating a lot of stress and tension in our lives. And then as these things settle down, then we kind of go back to this place of trying to make sense of it all, and we're not able to make sense of it all.
This is the Play Your Position podcast, where we huddle up, call the plays, and inspire you to run your ball into the end zone. Are you ready to score more game-winning touchdowns in your life, business, and career? Then listen up, because it's game time, baby. Now, here's your host, Mary Lou Kaiser.
All right, Team PYP, Mary Lou Kaiser here. Welcome to another episode of the Play Your Position podcast, where we talk all things leadership, sometimes football, but mostly about how we can all show up to this amazing game called life that we're all playing with better skills, with a better mindset, and just some inspiration. And who couldn't use more of that these days? My guest today is going to fill you with inspiration. His name is Dirk van Reenen. Dirk, are you ready for kickoff?
I am ready. Let's do it.
Yeah. So team, here's some things that I know about Dirk. First of all, he is the founder and CEO of BERGflow, a company that specializes in helping small and medium-sized businesses build better teams to grow faster with higher profits and more time freedom. He is an award-winning entrepreneur, an international consultant, trainer, and former CEO of an $800 million a year sales organization. After a decade of experience building fast-growing companies by focusing on building strong teams, Dirk made some huge life changes in 2017. And since then, he's been focused on his real passion with BERGflow and working with ordinary small and medium-sized business owners that really want to elevate their business and life by focusing on their people. Learning how to hire the right people based on company culture, values, and vision, and then building collaborative teams in the workplace is something he spends most of his time doing. And so we're going to be discussing what that looks like. So if you are a small business owner or part of a medium-sized business, or maybe you work for a company somewhere, what Dirk's going to share with us, I think, is relevant to what's going on out in the world today with finding the right talent, finding the right fit. And I'm going to let him share his story. And we're going to start, Dirk, right out of the gate with you telling us your leadership story. When did you get the call to leadership? What was going on in your life? How old were you? And what do you remember about that particular time?
Well, I don't know that my first round with leadership was actually being called to leadership. I think it organically happened. I owned just a small business. I was in the ski and snowboard industry, and I actually acquired a company that I that I worked at when I was in college. So I started leading teams, but these were very, just very laid back type teams. I mean, a lot of kind of college students working part time or young adults or people kind of, just retiring that just kind of want a job and want to be part of the industry. So that was really my first shot at leadership. And it was very low pressure, just kind of focused on being customer centric and creating a great experience for customers. And so for me, that was kind of my first real interaction with leadership. And then, actually that business ended up failing in 2008 and put me in a really bad financial situation. So, and maybe it was because I also just took things too kind of lightly and didn't really focus on leadership or hiring the right people. It was just kind of more people I connected with that I thought would be fun to hang out with at work, and that was really my first 6-7 years of being a business owner. So after that, I was in a really tough spot. My family was in a very hard place financially, and that's where I kind of switched more to professional services and started getting into the auction industry and real estate industry. And that was really my first kind of real bout with, building an actual team that had to perform under pressure, that had to be more professional, that had to, show up. And really the first probably 3 to 4 years of that journey, again, I was kind of in leadership positions because I was hiring people, but I really didn't understand what leadership was. My blueprint of leadership was very flawed in the way that I grew up, because my vision, my blueprint for leadership when I grew up was somebody that has all the answers, somebody that always knows what to do, somebody that tells people what to do. It's that kind of Superman type person that just knows it all and does it all. And when I was trying to be that person, I was just miserably failing. And it really wasn't until it was December of 2012 that I attended a class in Austin, Texas. And for the first time in my life, it was like this super highway opened up in front of me. And for the first time in my life, I had a true plan and a blueprint of, what does it look like to build a team and become a true leader? And that started my journey of understanding leadership differently, approaching it differently, and looking at people differently. And from that moment, my businesses really started growing very fast, and I got an opportunity to go into a sales organization, relocated to Houston and then up to Maryland. And that's the organization that was doing about $800 million in sales. And, running an organization with a large executive leadership team with over 500 real estate agents, doing that kind of volume. And that just put me on a completely different trajectory. And then, at the end of 2016, I just felt called I want to take this work into small businesses and really help the small businesses that are out there that are struggling, just like I was back in 2009 and 10 and 11 and 12 before I really learned all this work. So that's been kind of the evolution of my leadership journey.
What a great story. I like that you have that desire to give back to where you remember being and remember, you described it so well, the 2008 situation where I think it's so interesting how your first stab at things was like, hey, let's just hang out and have a good time, right? And that's if you were in college age, late teens, early 20s, that's very common in terms of that part or that time in our lives, and how your definition of leadership has evolved. I'm curious, how do you define leadership today compared to what you used to think it was?
Yeah. Today I truly believe leadership is about getting to know other people at a really deep level, understanding who they are as a person, understanding what their true strengths are, understanding what their desires are, what they want to accomplish in life, and creating alignment between them and the organization. And then as they're on that journey of them being in alignment and they're winning and they're helping the company win, it's helping to remove those big obstacles out of their way and helping them to become the person that can begin removing larger and larger obstacles, not out of their own way, but even the people that they lead. And so it's very much changed from what I thought it used to, because today it's just a realization that I'm just simply not smart enough, and I don't have enough time to learn everything that I need to lead people. So what I've come to realize and what we teach our clients to do is go find the right people. And, I love, kind of the play your position, that you really focus on, because for us, it's about finding the right person for the right position with the right motivation.
Mhm.
And when you do that, then you don't have to prod people or try to motivate them. They're already they're already motivated. All you got to do is help remove obstacles out of their way and help them deal with challenges and help them think differently through things. And as that process, continues to build, they become great leaders, and they are then able to duplicate the same process with the people that they're leading. And for us, it's just about continuing the iterations in that process. As a leader, I always have to continue to learn and study and just understand that I need great people around me for me to lead. And, the same thing for the people that I lead. One of the biggest things that I'm constantly talking to them about and coaching them on is that they are going to hit a really big ceiling with their performance unless they really start putting focus on the people that they are leading and making sure that they're hiring great people, that they're pouring into their people and elevating, because their future success depends on the people that are around them and supporting them as well.
So how do you truly know who the right people are for your business? This is a question. When I saw this on the information that I was sent about you, I thought, wow, that is a big question. When you're working with your clients, Dirk, how do you help them know who the right people are for their businesses?
Yeah, great question. I mean, the first thing that we have to go through with people is to reorient their thinking around what the organization is. A lot of people build businesses, $1 million, $2 million, $3 million businesses, and they've been in the game long enough. They've also, the last 10, 12 years have been exceptionally prosperous in the marketplace. So naturally, there's just been an expansion, an explosion of businesses, new businesses launching, businesses growing and expanding and scaling. However, we find that a lot of businesses get to a point where they don't really know who they are. And so for us, we have to go back to this place. And this is one of those things that so many people talk about, but I feel like there's not a lot of people that truly understand how to go to the depth of understanding who they are when it comes to the vision of the company, the mission of the company, and the values of the company. Because those three things create the culture.
Mhm.
And it's important that people kind of focus on, let's have a great culture. And great culture comes from bringing people together that see the same thing, that are willing to do the same things, and that are willing to really live under the same level of values and how they show up and how they treat each other. And that doesn't mean that people don't have different perspectives of it or different understandings around it or, challenging each other, but it means that people are there because they believe in the company that they work for. They see the vision of this company, and we are here not just for a paycheck, but we are here to help this company move forward and realize that vision. We want to work towards that vision. We see ourselves in the future living within that vision of this company. And then the same thing, the mission comes down to what do we need to do today, this week, this month, this quarter, this year to move towards that vision. And then the values really becomes, how it's like the rules of play. When we show up to work together, how are we going to treat each other? What is our belief system around conflict? What is our belief system around trust or challenging each other or showing care or candor or, whatever the case may be. But all of those things are value related. And, that's what creates the culture. So as a company, if you can get really clear about those things and talk about it in a way that resonates with people, because one thing I've realized is one thing that we do is we strip all complexity away around the vision, the mission, and the values of the company, meaning that we want the mission and vision of the company to each be articulated in 1 to 2 sentences.
Okay.
And we want the values to be able to be articulated in just a few words, maybe 5 to 7 words, and that each have a definition that can be understood across the company. Because one thing we see is like companies have these mission and vision statements that sound so amazing when you read them, and they're on the wall and they're in the email signature. And yet when you talk to somebody in the company, they're like, I have no real idea what any of that means. I'm just here doing my job. And that's what we want to get away from. We want people to not show up for a paycheck. And what we teach our clients is never, ever hire somebody that's there for a paycheck. The paycheck is the reward. It's the afterthought. It's what you get, but it's not even the number one or two or three or four thing that's important about the work that you do. And when we find that when people take jobs for a paycheck, when all that they care about is how much I'm going to get paid and what are the benefits, then it's a transactional deal, right? It's not relational. And if you go into a business dealing with somebody from a transactional mindset, it's always going to be transactional from that point forward, because it's always going to be like, well, you need to pay me a little bit more money, or I'm leaving the company because another company will pay me a little bit more money, or hey, I need this benefit or I'm leaving, or it's just transactional, right? And there's not a promise in that relationship between the company and the individual. And what we really want to shift to is hire people that believe in the company, that believe in the mission and vision and values of the company. And by the way, the only way that they can ever believe in those things is you have to lead the conversation in the hiring process with that person to find out, what do those things look like for them?
Sure.
It's not you're not selling your company to somebody when they interview with you. You were just slowing down and you're having a conversation with them to get to know them. So we really slow the hiring process down. And this is one of those things that a lot of people, when they hear this the first time, they're like, oh my gosh, like we need people right now. Like we can't afford to take that long to hire somebody. And I'm like, man, you cannot not afford to take that long.
Right.
Because the reason right now that you're feeling so much pain is probably because you've been making bad hires. You got people in your organization that aren't showing up in the way that they need to support the team, support the company. They're doing the bare minimum. They're there for a paycheck. That's why in the first place you're experiencing so much pain. So it really is a paradigm shift from a business owner's point of view to say, okay, I got to spend some time to slow down here and figure out, who are we as a company? What matters most? Where are we going? What is our mission? And then start the process. And we always start with companies, not just like focusing on the next person you hire, but who you already are in business with. Go to a deeper level of relationship with the people that you are already in business with. Get to know them at a different level. And what we do is kind of two things. We have assessments that help with that, meaning that we do behavioral assessments, cognitive agility assessments, and emotional intelligence assessments that gives us a lot of data about people. And then the other part of this is conversational models on how we can really discover what's most important to people, what they really want to see happen in their life in the next 3 to 5 years, what's important to them, their family, their career, what they do, how they do it. I mean, really go deep in that and really start understanding what's their internal drive. So when we started understanding a lot of those things, then we have enough data to say, is this person really in alignment with where we are as a company, where we're going, or are we really out of alignment? And what we have to do is we have to create as much alignment as possible to give us the greatest chance for longevity with that person and their ability to grow within the company. And we call that ascension. We've got a training and a program within BERGflow called Talent Ascension, where the idea is it doesn't matter who you hire, whether it's an executive today or it's somebody that's starting off on boots to the ground floor of your company. Hire somebody that can learn, that can grow, that can become a leader from day one in the company, and give them that opportunity. Because when you do that, what you're doing is you're raising the overall level of thought, the level of commitment, the level of collaboration. And fast forward that 5 years, and now you have an organization that's very learning based, that's very supportive, that people understand that we have to change, we have to adopt in different ways to move forward. And what you don't do is you don't build a bottom heavy organization where you've just been hiring people, you haven't poured into them, it's just about them doing their job, and then you get to a point where it's just a breaking point. And we see companies that are 2, 3, 4, 5 million companies, or companies that are $10 million companies that hit that breaking point where they have to literally tear things down within their own company for 12 to 18 months to be able to rebuild to go to the next level, because they've built something that can no longer sustain.
Right.
And that's why we tell everybody from day one, as fast as you can, no matter how small you are or wherever you are today, make sure that you're building something that's scalable, and it starts with focusing on your people.
So where are companies finding these people? That's, to me, the big question. How are they okay, so they do these amazing things that you work with them. They get clear on their mission, their values, their vision, and they like, okay, and then they have to go out and find people. And I have had numerous conversations over the last, I would say, 3 to 5 years, not just here on PYP, but on social media and LinkedIn particularly, which is we all know that's the professional network where people are talking about finding a job or changing your career, or, how do we do teams better, all that kind of stuff. I mean, you're on there, so you see it. Well, one of the biggest challenges today is getting the right companies and the right people together, because you have the applicant tracking system in place, which is an absolute disaster. And it seems like the right hand can't talk to the left and the left hand can't talk to the right. So I'm really curious, from your vantage point with BERGflow, Dirk, how do you help companies know where to go? I mean, are they just populating places like Indeed or ZipRecruiter, or like, what are companies doing to find these people who would be like, yeah, I want to work for this because I like this?
Yeah, great question. And let me start somewhere, and then I'll kind of loop back to and encompass everything that you just asked, right? So, have you ever heard of like Shackleton's ad?
You mean like Ernest Shackleton, the guy that explored down in Antarctica?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So for any of your listeners that have never heard of the ad, here's what the ad said, right? So Shackleton is leaving England and he's going to the Arctic to go explore. And this is going to be a very dangerous mission. And he's having to recruit people to go on this mission with him. And so he puts an ad in the paper, and the ad reads, "Men wanted for hazardous journey, small wages, bitter cold, long months of complete darkness, constant danger, safe return doubtful, honor and recognition in case of success." Period. That's what the ad said, right?
Yes,
it pretty much
yes.
said, this is going to be the hardest, most sucky thing you've ever done. There's a good chance you're going to die doing it. But if you come back, you will have honor and success.
Right.
There are so many people that showed up that he got to handpick his team, and he went to the Arctic and he came back with 100% of his crew alive. Why?
Right.
Because he set a clear mission, he set a vision, and he called to the right people. That's what companies are not doing today. They're putting out very generic stuff.
Yes.
What they're doing is they're getting people that are applying to generic stuff. So one thing that we do, and we help companies with this, is we get to know the company. We get to understand, okay, who is the person that you are needing? Who is the person that's going to succeed in this vision? And then what we do is, through doing all the assessment work, we can pinpoint the language that we need to use to call to that person. So now when we go to ZipRecruiter or Indeed or LinkedIn or Facebook or wherever you want to post a job, we are saying, listen, person, this is who we're looking for. If this is you, you are our person. We need to talk, and everybody else ignores it. And that's the key thing to do when you're looking for people today, is you have to call to the people that you're looking for, and you have to get everybody else to ignore it. Because one thing that I just loathe using Indeed to hire. I'll just say that.
Thank you.
Because they make it now to where people can just apply for jobs without applying for jobs. So you post a job and you get 500 applicants, and 4 of the 500 applicants didn't even know that they applied for your job. And then, it's so dysfunctional, and it wastes so much time, and it gives me a headache just thinking about it. It makes me tired thinking about hiring through Indeed. So what I want to do is we create our own environment. We build custom career pages for companies that we work with. And our job is to go to all of those sites and pull people from those sites to our environment. We want to control the message. We want to control the look, the feel, the values, the wording we use. And then that's where we want to start the application process. Because we find that, look, everybody wants names, but look, 600 names are pointless to you if it's going to take you 500 hours to work through all of this to try to find one person that may or may not work out. So what we really do is say, look, let's create the environment where you control the message. You can really talk about your company, what you're doing, who you're looking for, and who are the right people. And then let's go out and let's pull them from different environments to your environment. And then, by the way, as a company, you're building your own database now off of, your database is not on Indeed or on LinkedIn or on Facebook or anywhere else. Like, you're literally building your own database. And for us, that's called talent acquisition systems. That's kind of another product that we have within BERGflow, was how do you build an entire system around talent acquisition? Because we've realized that with, and we mentioned this, you and I had a little bit of chat before the show started. Today, so many people we hear that they're looking for, they're like, our greatest challenges right now are staff and staffing.
Mm-hmm.
Do we currently have the right people? Are they doing the right things? And how do we hire more people? Like, it's a real challenge in the business world today. So what we do is say, look, your competitive advantage over your competitor in the marketplace is not exactly what your pricing is or what your product is or what your system is, or what your service is. It's your team. Our belief and our saying is the companies with the best teams will win. So why not focus as a leader today on, I need to build a system that's going to help me hire the best talent. And here's the other game changer. You get away from playing the short-term game and just saying, like, who do I need to hire today? Right? So obviously, Mary Lou, you like sports, right? You talk sports.
I do. Yes.
Yeah. Great teams, do they show up 2 weeks before they need a player and say, like, oh my gosh, we got to fill this position?
No.
What do they do? Look, they're recruiting from colleges. They're recruiting from high schools. I mean, I'm hearing stories of like junior high kids getting scouted these days.
Yes.
Right? These great sports organizations. And like, I think baseball is fun because there's multiple layers of a big team owning a D2 or I don't even know what it's called. Like, again, I told you I'm not the biggest sports person.
It's a farm team.
Yeah. They have multiple teams that they use to develop talent. So they have a really big talent bench. And when you're building a business, one of the things that I tell people all the time, which sometimes they're like, that's kind of crazy, is that I'm having conversations with people on a regular basis that I know that I can't touch today and hire them, but I want to be able to talk to them today and start that conversation so that I can hire them 2 or 4 or 5 years from now.
Sure.
And I'm starting that conversation now because I want to build a talent bench so that when I get to certain levels now, I know that, man, we are at the size of a company where I can provide that kind of opportunity for that person. And I've already built a relationship with them so that they're coming in. And I think that's playing the long game versus playing the short game, right? The short game is just like, oh my gosh, we need somebody right now. Let's just hire somebody. And they show up to the interview and they look okay and they talk okay and they sound okay. And you really know nothing about them. You spend literally 40 minutes with them and you're like, hey, you're hired. And then all of a sudden, 2 weeks, 3 months, whatever the case down the road, it's like this person's showing up different. They're not committed anymore. They're distracted. They're not doing their job. They leave or you have to fire them and you have to start the whole process over. So for a lot of business owners, they're spending so much time trying to find people and then they hire them, they train them, and they leave, and then they're doing that over and over and over and over. But then they say that, oh, I don't have the time to slow down to hire. And I'm like, man, like you got to look at this a little bit differently. Like you cannot afford, like you can't hire people quickly. Slow down on who you hire. Understand who you're looking for. Make sure that you have a really good sense that you're hiring the right person, because that's the thing is that, we don't have 100% batting average in my world. Our clients don't have 100% batting average on their world for hiring the right people all the time. However, our batting averages are higher than kind of the typical in the industry, which means that, if your batting average is 60% over a 5-year period on hiring the right people, and I can get mine up to 75 or 80%, I am going to just kill you in competition. Right?
Absolutely.
I'm going to grow faster. We're going to have better people, better longevity. We're going to have to be able to do things faster than you. And no matter what you do, you're not going to be able to compete with me because my talent in my company is at a higher level. I've built a better team. So that's really the way to think about this, is to say, who are we? Who do we need? Let's call to that person, and then let's start building relationships that allow us to hire great people, not just now, but in 3 months, 6 months, a year, 5 years from now.
It's halftime here at the Play Your Position podcast, and we've got ourselves a great game. While you're up grabbing another snack and topping off your favorite beverage, make sure to subscribe to the show so you never miss another play. PYP is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever great podcasts can be found. Now, let's get back to the game.
I really like that mindset of the long game and also looking at how sports teams, again, particularly baseball, it's a great example, keep their pipeline of talent full. And you've experienced this not only as a business owner, but now when you serve your clients who are business owners, you're seeing behind the curtain, you're seeing what's been going on. And there's a phrase I've heard said, which alludes to what you're getting at, is you need to hire slowly and fire quickly. And it's almost always the opposite. Businesses take way too long to fire that dead weight, right? And they make rash hiring decisions because they feel under the gun. And that's what you've been talking about today, which I think the experiences that you've been having, Dirk, since 2017, doing the work with BERGflow, it's priceless. And it's not just for business owners, but for people who are working within businesses, whether it's a small business or a medium-sized business, which I know is what you focus on. The cost to these organizations is extraordinary when their approach is the backwards approach, where we're going to just make these quick decisions because we need people. We need, in sports, it's called butts in the bleachers. You're trying to get as many tickets sold to the event, not really thinking about who's there. Are these people going to be booing you? Or are they true fans, right? And I think I'm a big fan of technology, but I think the pendulum has swung a little too far, where we've removed the human factor in making some of these decisions. And it sounds like what BERGflow does is says, okay, we're going to slow it down here, but you're going to see the results magnified down the road. If you can just be patient, this is going to pay off.
Yeah. I mean, and that really is, it is a patience game, and I think everybody today is so, we're just in such a now culture. We want everything now. We want great teams now. And fortunately, it just takes time to build a great team. Like, humans are humans.
Yeah.
There's when teams come together, there's conflict, there's frustration, there's support, there's sabotage. I mean, there's everything that you can imagine in a human relationship shows up at work. But yet people kind of view this thing as like, oh, you're one person at work and you're one person away from work. And that's simply not true. You are one person. Maybe you're showing up to work and you're trying to be somebody else, but you're still who you are. So our whole approach is just find out who somebody is, just let go of all the BS and formalities and just get to know people for being people, and then say like, hey, can we work together and build something great together?
Yeah.
And it's a very different approach because it takes away the top-down approach. It takes away the kind of the power play type environment within companies. And I mean, that was my environment that I was raised in. That was my blueprint.
Sure.
And it just didn't work for me. It didn't work for me building businesses. And when I discovered that there's a whole different way of building a team where I can go to my team. I mean, just this week, I went to one of my key leaders and I said, I need help right now. I cannot make this decision. I got a lot of things that I'm dealing with at a very high level. I need help making this decision. Can you help me?
Yes.
And I want to display that level of vulnerability for my team to show them that I don't have all the answers. I don't always know what to do. I can't make the right call all the time, but I believe I can make better decisions if you help me, and if other people can help me, and if I can gain more information and collaborate and see like, hey, what do we all think is the best decision? I mean, if I have to make the call at the end of the day, I'll still make the call, but at least now I'm making it from a much more educated position. And because I included the voices of my leaders and other people, they're going to feel like they have DNA on that decision, and it's something, or I'm just going to tell them to make the decision and I'll support them in whatever decision they make. But it's just an approach of saying like, look, guys, I mean, the world's a little bit chaotic today. There's a lot going on. People are stressed out. People are anxious. So let's not put any more just individual pressure on people to have to perform. Let's learn how to work as a team, and let's learn how to collaborate and do this together.
Yeah. And it also instills trust. It tells that kind of gesture of asking for help lets people know that you value what they bring to the organization, and that it isn't just all about you as the founder and CEO, which, I've been around the block enough to know that there are companies where it is really all about the CEO and the founder, and those we read about it in social media and on blogs and hear about it on podcasts, these toxic cultures. I've seen some documentaries about different companies, and it's sad because it's just as easy to be kind and humane and vulnerable as it is to be the tyrant, the buck stops with me. And I know at some point when you are the founder and the CEO of an organization, sometimes you have to make a unilateral decision. And it's like that in families too. I mean, I'm a parent, and there were times when it was like, no, this is end of discussion. This is just how it is. And those are not easy conversations to have, but sometimes they have to be had, but not if you have a culture where it's like that all the time. That's what you're talking about, that you see companies stop growing, or they have to your point, dismantle the last 18 or 24 months and start over, which, wow, I can't even imagine what that must feel like. Although I have started over in my life. So I do understand sometimes you're like, well, I'll take everything I've learned and I'm starting at ground zero. And sometimes that's the best place to be. You start over, taking all the lessons that you learned, ideally, right? If you paid attention like you did, you're like, I'm not going to do that again. But I'm curious, Dirk, when we've talked a lot about the talent challenge, and it's from both sides. There are people looking for positions who can't seem to get anywhere. They can't even get a conversation with somebody who might be able to hire them. And then there are companies who are looking for really good people that would be the right fit. And there's also a barrier. Obviously, BERGflow is leading in the direction of you're gaining a reputation where you can help mitigate this particular problem. What do you see in the next 3 to 5 years? And I know none of us has a crystal ball, but just, what do you predict is going to impact the hiring and building of small to medium companies? Is there a factor that keeps coming up that you see over and over again that, listeners might go, oh, I hadn't thought of that? Or is, some trends that you're noticing? I mean, I hate to bring COVID into the conversation, but COVID took 2 years of our lives, and messed up a lot of things for a lot of us, So where are we headed?
Yeah, so I think, there's something that happened pre-COVID that's important to kind of just give some thought and understanding about. And that is, even pre-COVID, and this is somewhere around 2016, maybe 2017, that the rate of change in the world for the first time ever exceeded a human's ability to adapt to that rate of change.
Wow.
So if you think about this, since the creation of person, and however you think about that, if that's 6,000, 60 million, I mean, whatever time frame that is, but since the start, there has never been a time in the world where things changed so fast that humans could not adapt to it. Now, that started around 2017, and that's where we were asking the question pre-COVID to companies and people, like, do you feel like something's off in the world? Do you feel like there's just a kind of a borderline of anxiety that you can't quite put your finger on? And people would say yes, but I don't know what it is, right? And because they couldn't understand what that is, and then COVID happens and it massively accelerates it. And we're on this path now that things are changing so fast that before this happened, when there's an event in the world, call it a world war, 9/11, a natural disaster, whatever it is, and you're kind of affected by that in a deep way, then it's like you become kind of stressed and anxious, and there's unknowns. But then, as the event settles down, you kind of go back to this baseline place of like kind of figuring out what's life about. again, like, who am I? And you're kind of settling back into, hey, I can make sense of the world, right? I feel good. Well, now we're in this place where we have these elevated events, right? We've got COVID, we've got Russia invading the Ukraine, we've got now, like, hey, are we in a looming recession? It's like these things are happening that are creating creating a lot of stress and tension in our lives. And then as these things settle down, then we kind of go back to this place of trying to make sense of it all, and we're not able to make sense of it all. So all of a sudden, we start feeling like something is wrong. I just can't, I can't function right now. And I mean, if we look at all the statistics, I mean, even like prescription drugs on anxiety, depression, stress, I mean, are just through the roof. Like when you look at suicide hotlines, like the number of calls are through the roof. And it's because of the rate of change. So this is actually the foundational work that we started building BERGflow on. Like when I started reading some of these reports in 2016, I kind of thought in my head, like, this is going to be the single biggest disruptor in the business world ever. So our whole program is called Pivot Ready Teams. And how do you build teams within an organization that can adapt to change faster and be able to move forward, even though all this chaos is constantly happening around us? But that's the biggest change.
Wow.
And companies that are tuned into that and can start building their teams differently are going to thrive in the future, versus companies that don't understand that this is even happening. If they're not aware of that, they're going to start focusing on things that have become more and more irrelevant because they're not focusing on building the right type of teams that can really carry the organization forward. So I think that is the single biggest trend that's going to continue to disrupt small and medium-sized businesses, and one of the side effects of this is that there's more and more people that are just, they're not sure what to do. And then you've got these big companies that have started figuring this stuff out. And what they're doing is they're just sucking up everything, right? So we're seeing consolidation worldwide, industry-wide, happening all over the place. Like companies are just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I mean, we've started seeing more activity in the acquisitions world in the last 24 months than we've ever seen before. So now it's either that you're building a company that's going to get acquired by somebody bigger, or, you have to be that company that starts scaling and also starts acquiring other companies.
Oh my gosh.
So the game is also changing in business, and we feel like it's a huge opportunity if you can start understanding that the whole environment has shifted.
Yeah. Well, I think of the news that keeps coming up. It's been coming up for the last couple of months of Elon Musk buying Twitter. That's an example of what you're getting at. Twitter itself is a decent sized company, and Elon Musk is one of the richest men in the world who can just come and gobble up something like Twitter without even batting an eye, and that I'm so glad that you shared that reality, because I want to say I've heard it before, but I'd forgotten. And to hear you say that we've tipped into a space where we humans cannot keep up with the rate of change, I think is absolutely critical to ponder and then ask yourself, okay, if this is true, and it is, if this is reality now, what am I going to do given that? And then you can make decisions from a place of power versus being a victim and asking yourself, what happened? What just happened here? And I hear people say that all the time. There's that idiom that now has been developed, like, what's happening? People just, we can't process the amount of stuff that's coming at us from every direction. And therefore, you share some of those stats: drug use, suicide hotline, people seeking mental health help, and the like. Wow, that's just, yeah. Talk about having, I need time to process just that, right? So, good stuff. Well, we're at the part of the show that I call touchdown. So let's get into something that seems maybe a little more controllable, although maybe not. And putting you in the red zone, Dirk, Dirk, with less than 30 seconds left on the clock. You're down by 4 points, which means it is now or never. So would you tell us a story about a time when you helped to get that ball into the metaphorical end zone for the game-winning touchdown?
Yeah, I think, there are times, we recently did a really, really large project. And it's the biggest project that I've been involved in. It's about a $10 million project. And there came this time where And I think a lot of business owners get to a point when they're going for that next level, when they're going for that touchdown, where you are in the red zone. I mean, you can see that the goal line is right there, but the resistance just starts building up against you. And I mean, things just start happening. The stress is elevated. I mean, the speed just picks up. I mean, it just feels like it's overwhelming. And, I've come to know something that in that moment, when you have to go for it, there's a deep rooted decision that has to be made. It's not a decision of like, I'm going to try and get it done. It's not the thing that, well, I'll just do what I can. It's a decision that I am now fully committed to getting that ball in the end zone, no matter what it takes. And what I found in my life is that moment, that decision is the thing that is required to go to the next level. And I think that's where a lot of people get to that point where they need to make that decision, and yet they're backing away from that decision. They're saying, well, I'll just keep doing, or I've been working really hard, or well, if it works out, it works out, or oh, that doesn't look like it's going to happen again. But it's that moment where a decision needs to be made, where you have to just decide, look, I am fully committed to this. I will do what it takes to get that done. And what I've seen is within my life, our businesses, our clients' businesses, when they get to the level of making that decision in that moment, they're going to get to the touchdown.
I love it. Decision making. It's something that is not formally taught in school. Certainly, a person could argue that decision making is worked into assignments and projects and the like. But statistically, most people do not know how to make a decision. All those things you just said are indicative of not being fully committed. And the word decide means to sever. It means to sever. So you have to, I'm sure you've heard the story about burning the ships, that at some point you're not going back. You have to remove the exit to get back to where you think it's safe. There's no safety back there. You did that, it's not working. And that sense of well, you could call it FOMO. Oh, I'm saying yes to everything. I'm not deciding to say no to anything because it might be this or might be that. But guess what? Now you've spread yourself so thin, nothing's happening, and you're overwhelmed, and everything feels out of control. And then you just throw your hands up and go, "I'm not doing anything," which it doesn't work either. I mean, yes, decision making so important, and it sounds like one of the many just fantastic experiences that you bring to your clients is the helping them to make those decisions to truly sever ties with how we've done it, and we're going to do it this way now, and then see things grow. Yeah.
Well, I think if you don't get to that decision point, you don't have that kind of commitment, it's just not going to happen. And I think that's the difference between people that are truly committed and have great teams that are truly committed, is that it doesn't mean that they don't have resistance. It means when they are met with resistance, they have a higher level of commitment that overcomes the level of resistance. And I do believe that resistance is put in our life to test us. But resistance comes up, a storm comes up in your life, and the storm is set there to be a test, to say, look, have you become the person that you need to become to live life at the next level?
Yes.
And most people simply just back away from the storm and they kind of duck and hide. And then, then they kind of rise up and they kind of gather their things again and they try to go again. But what I've learned is the same storm will meet you over and over and over until you overcome it.
Right.
And once you overcome it, it'll usher you into a season of blessing and fulfillment and fruitfulness. And then sure enough, there's another storm that's coming. Right? So it's a series of just understanding when you're kind of in this moment of prosperity and when you're in a storm, and understanding that it's all part of life. And when you're in the storm, embrace being in the storm, find your strength and your centeredness in the storm, and then, become the person that you need to become to walk out of that storm with confidence, and then teach others to do the same.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That is a question I ask myself regularly. I say, who do you need to become, Mary Lou, to get through this challenge, whatever the challenge may be? And it's not about who am I right now. It's employing the imagination. It's fast forwarding to who do you need to become right now. And boy, that is not easy. That is not, I mean, even with practice, there's times
Right.
when the instinct is, I just want to run. I just want to go into the shelter, let the storm pass me by and I'll come out. But when you do that,
Right.
as you said, you're still the same person. You didn't allow that storm to help you become who you need to be to face what's next. Because guess what? Storms leave a mess behind. And so you're going to be facing something that isn't the way it was before the storm hit. And if you haven't
Right.
developed the mindset around who do I need to be in order to face what's next, it's going to be even that much more overwhelming. So, oh gosh, such good stuff. Well, listen, Dirk, I want you to share with listeners where they can learn more about you and the business that you have, the BERGflow, and the different opportunities to work with you. Where do you hang out online?
Yeah. So the best place to learn about us is on just our website, bergflow.com, BERGFLOW.com. And really, if you are considering, hey, kind of like what Dirk was talking about, or some of it resonates with me, we kind of put a special link together, bergflow.com/PYP, for kind of our core training that's called Pivot Point. And it's a 2-day intensive training that we do with business leaders and their key leaders. So we always tell people, if you're the owner, the founder, the CEO, bring your operations person or your integrator or that right-hand person that you have, bring them with you so you can go through it together. But what we do is explore the framework of really structuring companies to scale and really understanding what does it mean to build a great team first and foremost that will really build a company. So we've got those trainings going on. We've got another one coming up in August in Dallas, but bergflow.com/PYP. And that's really the best place to connect with us. And if anybody just wants to talk, I mean, we're always open to just having a phone call and getting to know you. We're very relational in business. So we don't try to sell people something on the first time we talk to them or anything like that. I mean, for us, it's just about getting to know you, finding out if there's a fit in who you are and what you're wanting to achieve and who we are and what we're doing. Again, that alignment is really important for us, not just for our team members, but with our clients. And so if you want to find out what that looks like, reach out to us. We'd love to have a conversation with you.
That's amazing. Thank you for the offer. And team, that the link to connect with Dirk will be on his show notes page at pyppodcast.com. Certainly you can go, right, it's easy, bergflow.com/PYP, but that link will be over on the show notes page, along with a book or two that, Dirk, you're about to share with us. Could you give us a couple of titles of books that have been instrumental parts of helping you become the amazing leader that you are today?
Yeah. So I've got 5 books to give, and
Oh,
2
good.
are really kind of on the personal side. So that have just been like really great books for me, and then 3 are on the business side. So the first one on the personal side is a little book called The Alchemist, and it's Paulo Coelho. Just a phenomenal book that really is about finding your vision, finding your North Star, like learning how to trust yourself. It's just a great little book. I love reading it. I usually read it at least about once every 18 months. Another one is, and this is again just like kind of a classic, is Think and Grow Rich, by Napoleon Hill. And I've read that book 7 times now. It is a phenomenal book for really helping you understand your mindset, helping you just kind of build a framework around what does it look like to build more success in your life. So those are the 2 ones on the personal side. On the business side, a couple of books that I really love. There's a book called Multipliers by Stephen Covey. And that really talks about how to get the right people around you that can help you multiply efforts, right? Not people that are just additions, meaning plus signs, but truly multipliers. Another book that's really phenomenal for organizations to scale is one called Great by Choice by Jim Collins. And there's just so many good stuff in that book. So many good stuff, like models, stories, everything. Really phenomenal. And then one that is just, again, a personal favorite of mine that is just a fascinating story is a book called The Fish That Ate the Whale. And that is by Rich Cohen. And not a lot of people that I've met have heard about that one, but it's a really phenomenal story of, how just a 19-year-old Russian Jewish immigrant kind of came to America and ended up building the company that overtook United Fruit, which was a behemoth company in the 40s in the United States. So Really fascinating story, just about really building and scaling business. So those are some books that I would just recommend that have been impactful in my life.
Love it. And again, I put links to these books that my guests recommend because, readers or leaders are readers is a philosophy of mine. And just warms my heart that you go back to books over and over again, like The Alchemist, like Think and Grow Rich, because one and done is it. When you find that book or a couple of books that really resonate with you, we can't get everything the first time. Plus, we're not the same person showing up to the book the second, third, fifth, 11th time. And one of the men that I have studied under, he just passed away this year, a man named Bob Proctor. He was introduced to Think and Grow Rich in 1961, and not a day went by after he discovered that book that he didn't read something of it. He read that book every day for over 50 years. Can you imagine that? You want to talk about the long game, but it changed his life.
That's a phenomenal book. I think
phenomenal.
they just made a movie of it.
Oh, did they? Okay.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, they may have. I'm a little bit out of the loop when it comes to some of the popular culture, but I'll take a look and see, and maybe I'll throw a link up if it's out. But yeah, those Great by Choice, Jim Collins. He also wrote Good to Great, which is, that he did got so much data on what made companies great. And obviously choosing to be great is half the battle, if not the whole battle, right? But I'm definitely going to get The Fish That Ate the Whale. Haven't heard of that one. So that's awesome.
It's a really fun book. Yeah.
Oh, good. I like that. I do. And I really like this, Dirk. You really showed up today in a big way and shared something incredibly valuable for all of us who are operating in a world that is defined by rapid change, is defined by a lot of chaos and uncertainty. And what you do is inspirational and encouraging, and also, I think, really shines a beacon of light towards the future that we can overcome some of our biggest challenges, especially when it comes to hiring the right people and creating companies that stand the test of time and do become great. So thank you for the work you do, and thank you for spending an hour of your time on the Play Your Position podcast.
Yeah, Mary Lou, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Really enjoyed the conversation with you, and thank you for allowing me to share with your audience.
Hey team, Mary Lou here. Who's number one in football changes from year to year. Fashion trends come and go, same with musical tastes. But leadership skills, they never go out of style. In fact, these days, leadership is an essential survival skill for a world that demands more from us than ever before. To succeed these days, you need to know how to show up for yourself so that you can then do the work you love with people you like the way you want. The Play Your Position Leadership Playbook helps you do this, and it's free. Go to pyppodcast.com to download your copy today. If being more successful this year, next year, in the 21st century is on your to-do list, get your copy of the Play Your Position Leadership Playbook now. pyppodcast.com. It's at the top of the page. You can't miss it. That's pyppodcast.com, and start being more of the leader you are meant to be today. This podcast was produced by Daniel Romeros. Show notes for this episode can be found over at pyppodcast.com. I'm Mary Lou Kaiser. Thanks for listening.
Here at the Play Your Position podcast, we believe that the road to self-mastery and a life well lived starts with answering the call to leadership. That's when the fun really begins. Send this episode to any friends who might need to hear the inspiration and ideas you heard today. And feel free to rate and review us on your favorite podcast platform.